Hey book lovers, Victoria here and you're watching My Books Me. Today I'm bringing you my next wrap up and this is books 35 to 39. So let's just dive right in. The first book is a short story collection and that is Arms Race by Nick Lowe. I had to read this for university and I really enjoyed it. Started off a little bit iffy but turned out to be really good and they're all very interesting and different stories. As the blurb says, data theft, internet memes, advertising, terrorism, indigenous sovereignty, drone warfare, opium addiction, syphilis, the moon landing, mining, oil slicks, climate change, giant octopuses. Nothing is spared in this collection. Nick Lowe's stories go beyond satire, aiming for the dark heart of our collective obsession with technology, power and image, set variously in London, Delhi, remote Mongolia, the West Australian outback and mountainous New Zealand. These are precedent visions of the future and outlandish reimaginings of the past. This was really interesting. As I said, a bit iffy at the start. Like the first story was like so weird and I know it probably had like a deeper meaning to it that honestly, I was reading this at like 11 o'clock at night and it was not a good start to this collection, but after that it really picked up. All the stories, because they were all very different, it did take me a little bit to get into them all, but I still really liked it. There are some definitely really good stories in here and they're definitely like really interesting looks at the future and interesting reimaginings of the past, yeah, I thought they were really good, and like a lot of them I definitely enjoyed most of them. There was a couple that were a little bit iffy like that first one I said, but all of them were really good and I definitely recommend this collection. It's very different but very thought-provoking and just a very interesting look at different aspects in the world. I gave this 3.5 out of 5 stars. Honestly, I don't know, but yeah, it was really good. Definitely recommend it. The next book is Cold Comfort Farm by Stella Gibbons. This was another book I had to read for university and this one was actually quite good, but thinking about it now, it wasn't really about anything much. This was written in the 1930s, but it is meant to be set in a not too distant future, and from things that are alluded to in here, they mention 1946 and like a war that took place. Like obviously this was written before World War II, but Stella Gibbons hints at like this particular war. So it's set I think in like the late 40s, early 50s, and some things in here are like future imaginings that Stella Gibbons thought would be available in that time period, definitely weren't. But we follow Flora Post, who has been expensively educated and her parents end up dying a couple of months apart. And she starts living off with a friend and her friend is like, look, you need to get a job because the £100 that you get a year, I can't quite remember how she's getting £100 a year of like her inheritance, I suppose, I don't really know. You need to get a job. And she's like, I feel like she was part lazy that she just didn't want to get a job and part not qualified to get a job. Like even though she had been expensively educated, she wasn't really trained or educated to get a job. So she decides she's going to ask some relatives if she can go live with them. She sends a letter to all of them, they all reply and they're all really good offers. Like they all say, yes, come and live with me, it's fine. But for most of them she doesn't like the living arrangements, particularly the fact that she has to share a room. Very first world problems going on here for her. But she ends up deciding she's going to go live with her cousin Judith Starkadder, who lives at Cold Comfort Farm in I can't remember if it was Surrey or Sussex. Can't remember. And her friend's like, are you serious? You are not fit for living on a farm. Like they're backwards out there sort of thing. And she's like, no, I'll go. She gets there and it is completely different to like the life that she's been living. But she decides that to keep entertained while she's living there, that she's going to like try and fix the family. She's going to push them to do things that they're better off doing. Like one of her cousins, he runs the farm and he is a preacher that goes into town every Sunday preaching like damnation, that everyone's going to go to hell. She convinces him that he should go and take his preaching all over the country and all over the world. This in turn leads his son, I think it's his son, honestly the family tree in here is absolutely ridiculous, his son, who is literally waiting for his father to pop off the perch to take over and run the farm. And she helps everyone else realize these other things that they could be doing in their life because they're controlled by their grandmother and Flora's aunt, Ada Doom, or Ada Starkadder, who is batshit crazy because she once saw something nasty in the woodshed. We are never alluded to what it is that she saw in the woodshed, which I'm so annoyed about. But she's kind of crazy and she's very controlling. She says that no one is allowed to leave the farm. She's prepared to marry her grandchildren and cousins off to one another, which everyone doesn't bat an eyelid, so I feel like it's just meant to be like satire, that the fact that that's what people did when they lived on farms in the 30s or back in the day. And yeah, we just follow her trying to fix this family and push everyone to do things then just stay on the farm. It's interesting, it's funny. This is meant to be, how is it worded? Is a sharp and clever parody of the melodramatic and the rule novel. I've never read any of those sorts of novels. I'm interested to read one just so that I can see how this compares to it. But it is definitely a fun read. It's funny. It's different. There really isn't any conflict or drama in here. I mean, there's a little bit, but Flora's just like, I don't care what y'all think, I'm just gonna come in here, tell you what to do, and that's it. She doesn't really care that Aunt Ada Doom is like crazy and that she is controlling everyone. Like, I don't know. It's interesting, it's different. I gave this 3.5 out of 5 stars. If you're wanting to read some early 20th century stuff, I definitely recommend this because it was a pretty easy read. It's different. It's weird. Anyway. Then another book I had to read for university was Strong Poison by Dorothy L. Sayers. This is either the 5th or 6th book in the Lord Peter Wimsey series and the first book in the Lord Peter Wimsey mystery with Harriet Vane. And this is about Harriet Vane, who is a mystery crime novelist who is accused of murdering her fiancé in the same manner in the book that she is getting published, and it's like exactly the same crime. And the only way in her book that she was able, the way she'd written her book was that the only way she could have the actual killer revealed was a confession. Like, that's how well she'd written her book, and that's essentially like what is happening in real life. And at her trial, the jury cannot decide whether she is innocent or guilty, so they decide to have a break for a month to gather more evidence and everything like that. And Peter Wimsey comes along. He's like a gentleman detective, kind of like Poirot. I think that's kind of what it's meant to be modeled after. And he decides that he's going to try and spend the next month figuring out who did it, because he does not believe that Harriet was the murderer, and also he wants to marry Harriet and makes it very plainly clear and plainly known to her, like the first time they ever meet, which is very weird, but anyway. So he spends this next month piecing together some evidence and trying to figure out who it was that was the murderer, and a lot of like friends get involved, and it's really interesting. This fell a little bit flat in the middle. I think one of the problems I had with this book was the fact that this is like the 5th or 6th book in the series, and while I don't think you necessarily have to read the books in order so much, there are a lot of characters in here that just sort of pop in and out as if you meant to know them, and I'm assuming it's because they have been previously introduced. So when they were like talking about these characters and things that they were doing, I was so confused as to who they were in reference to. Also, there's a lot of dialogue in here, and a lot of the dialogue where it's going between different characters but not necessarily stating who's speaking, and I'm okay with that. That's how I sometimes write dialogue when I'm writing stories. And it works, but it doesn't work when there are so many different characters that I'm so confused about. But this got really good near the end. Probably the last third of the book were really good when it's all coming out, and I thought it was really cleverly done how this was written and how the plot worked and how it all came together. I thought it was really interesting. I'm intrigued to read the next couple of books in this because I want to know how he and Harriet get together, because I have read that they do end up getting together. Spoiler alert, but I'm really intrigued. I gave this 3.5, again, 3.5 out of 5 stars. It was a good mystery. If you're into crime and mystery novels, definitely recommended just to check it out. Yeah, I thought it was good. I'm definitely glad I got to read it. It's not something I would have picked up otherwise. It's not something I've ever heard of. So yeah. Final 2 books that I read are some graphic novels. The first one is Saga Volume 1 by Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples. I finally got around to reading this, and this was so good. I literally knew nothing about this other than these 2 people are from different alien races. The alien races are fighting against one another, and they have a baby, and they're on the run. That's all I knew, and that's essentially all this is about anyway. Honestly, not much happened in here apart from them having the baby at the very beginning and then going on the run to try and get off this planet so that they can go to a new planet in the galaxy where there isn't any war. While that's happening, there are some bounty hunters after them. they're both very different bounty hunters. One of them decides that he's not going to go after these people because the other bounty hunter is, and he does not like the other bounty hunter. And so he ends up going to this place called Sex Trillion, which is just like a whole planet like with sex and strippers and prostitutes and stuff on it. So he's doing that. And then what else happens in here? Oh, and then there's this weird robot alien race, and they look so weird because they are human bodies with like computer heads, and he's trying to also go after these people. And it's so weird, but I really enjoyed it. And the artwork in here, where's a good piece of artwork? Like the artwork in here, where are we? Is really good. I really liked it. And the ending was really good, and I'm really intrigued to see what happens next. I can't wait to get the second volume. I might get the next couple of volumes. I also like the fact that within this, the child is narrating, like she's telling her story, and it was just really interesting how that was woven in. I just really enjoyed this. I definitely recommend, if you haven't read this yet, to give it a go. I'm so glad I finally got to read it. And the other one is one that I have been meaning to read for so long, and I'm so glad I finally got around to doing it, and I'm so glad I don't have to wait too long for the next volume, and that is Sex Criminals Volume 3, Through the Hard Way by Matt Fraction and Chip Zdarsky. This picked up after John and Susie, who whenever they have sex can freeze time, and they've been using that to rob banks. This picks up after they find out that there are other people like them out there, and they're trying to track them down before like these weird sex police people do. Like there's this weird world where there are all these people who can freeze time when they have sex, and they're trying to track them down to ask them to be involved in their thing that, like, I don't really know what they were planning to achieve when they tracked these people down. While that's happening, you get to meet all these other people who can do this. One of them is really weird, really weird. I don't really want to show you, but I kind of do. Also, there's an asexual person in here, which the way that's written in, I mean, it was cool, but the way like that's written in was kind of weird. Also, I do just have to say, this one is a lot more graphic than every other volume in the series. They've definitely decided to be a little bit more graphic with their drawing. But what I also really love is that there's a whole section in here where instead of actually showing the scene that they wanted to write, the authors just made it what they're having a conversation about the scene and everything like that, which I thought was really good. The way this is written is just so funny, and it has a lot of talking straight to you as the reader. I really enjoyed it. Highly recommend, if you haven't read the Sex Criminals series, to read it. The next volume is coming out in August, and I'm so excited to see where it's going, because the way these always ends on, every volume has ended on a really interesting cliffhanger, and this one was no different. So I gave both those I gave Saga 4.5 out of 5 stars, and Sex Criminals also 4.5 out of 5 stars. I think I'm just going to say that right now. So they are the next 5 books that I have read. I'm nearly up to another 5, so there will probably be another wrap-up video soon-ish, probably this month sometime. Let me know in the comments below if you've read any of those books, your thoughts on them, and I will see you guys next week or soon or something with another video. Bye!